Dinah sat in the empty cafe, clutching the note in her trembling hands. The words Jungkook had written echoed in her mind, filling her with a strange mix of gratitude and unease. She didn't know why, but something about the note felt off. It was too perfect, too timely, almost as if it had been planned. She shook her head, trying to dismiss the thought. "I'm overthinking this," she told herself. He's just a kind person who wanted to help. But as the days passed and the story of the note went viral, Dinah couldn't shake the feeling that something wasn't right. Strangers approached her on the street, asking for selfies or to hear the story firsthand. News outlets bombarded her with requests for interviews. Even her coworkers treated her differently, as if she had somehow become a celebrity overnight. Then, one evening, as Dinah was closing up the cafe, her phone buzzed with an unknown number. She hesitated before answering. "Hello? Is this Dinah?" a man's voice asked, calm but firm. "Yes, who's this?" "My name is Agent Park. I work with the National Intelligence Service. We need to speak with you immediately." Dinah's heart skipped a beat. "The National Intelligence Service? What's this about?" "It's about Jungkook," the man said. "And the note he left you. We believe it's part of something much larger." The next morning, Dinah found herself sitting in a dimly lit room at the NIS headquarters. Agent Park, a middle-aged man with sharp features and a no-nonsense demeanor, sat across from her. On the table between them was a file labeled Top Secret. "What's going on?" Dinah asked, her voice barely above a whisper. "Why am I here?" Agent Park opened the file and slid a photograph toward her. It was a picture of Jungkook, but not the kind she was used to seeing. In this photo, he was standing in a dark alley, speaking to a man in a hoodie. The man's face was obscured, but his posture was tense, almost threatening. "Jungkook isn't who you think he is," Agent Park said. "He's been under investigation for months. We believe he's involved in a money laundering operation that spans multiple countries. The note he left you? It wasn't just an act of kindness. It was a coded message." Dinah's mind raced. "A coded message? What are you talking about?" Agent Park pointed to the note, which had been enlarged and analyzed. "Look closely at the handwriting. The way the letters are formed, the spacing between the words, it's a cipher. We've deciphered part of it, and it contains coordinates and instructions for a drop-off point. Jungkook used you to pass along critical information to his associates." Dinah felt the room spin. "That's impossible. He's a global superstar. Why would he risk everything for something like this?" "Fame and wealth can be a cover for darker activities," Agent Park explained. "Jungkook's connections and influence make him the perfect middleman for this operation. He's been using his public image to avoid suspicion." Dinah's hands clenched into fists. "So, what does this have to do with me? I didn't ask for any of this." "You're a key witness now," Agent Park said. "Whether you like it or not, you're involved. We need your help to bring him down." Over the next few weeks, Dinah found herself caught in a web of lies and danger. She agreed to cooperate with the NIS, feeding them information about any contact Jungkook or his associates might try to make with her. But the more she learned, the more she realized how deep the conspiracy went. One night, as she was walking home from work, a black car pulled up beside her. The window rolled down and a familiar voice called out, "Dinah." She froze. It was Jungkook. "Get in," he said, his tone urgent. "We need to talk." Dinah hesitated, her heart pounding. She glanced around, but the street was empty. Against her better judgment, she got into the car. "What's going on?" she demanded as the car sped away. "The NIS says you're involved in something illegal. Is it true?" Jungkook's expression was grim. "It's not what you think. The NIS is lying to you. They're the ones behind the money laundering operation. They've been using me as a scapegoat to cover their tracks." Dinah stared at him, her mind reeling. "Why should I believe you?" "Because I have proof," Jungkook said, pulling out a USB drive. "Everything you need to know is on here. But if you take it, you'll be in danger. The NIS won't stop until they silence both of us." Dinah took the USB drive, her hand shaking. "What am I supposed to do with this?" "Get it to the media," Jungkook said. "Expose the truth. But be careful. Trust no one." The next few days were a blur. Dinah went into hiding, using the skills she'd learned from watching too many spy movies to stay off the grid. She reached out to a journalist she trusted, and together, they uncovered the shocking truth. The NIS had been using Jungkook's fame to funnel illegal funds through his charity projects. The note he'd left Dinah had indeed been a coded message, but not for his associates. It was a desperate plea for help, a way to expose the corruption without alerting the NIS. When the story broke, it sent shockwaves through the country. Jungkook was cleared of all charges, and the NIS officials involved were arrested. But the fallout was far from over. Dinah became a target, her life in constant danger as the remnants of the operation sought revenge. In the end, Dinah and Jungkook found themselves standing on a rooftop, looking out over the city they'd helped save. "Thank you," Jungkook said quietly. "You didn't have to risk your life for me." Dinah smiled faintly. "I didn't do it for you. I did it because it was the right thing to do." As they stood there, the weight of everything they'd been through hanging in the air, Dinah realized that the note Jungkook had left her had been more than just a message. It had been a catalyst, a reminder that even in the darkest moments, one small act of kindness could change everything. But this time, the kindness wasn't just his. It was hers, too. Just as Dinah and Jungkook thought the nightmare was over, a shadowy figure emerged from the rooftop entrance. It was Agent Park, his face twisted with rage. "You really thought you could outsmart us?" he sneered, holding a gun. "This ends here." Before either of them could react, a shot rang out. Dinah braced herself for the impact, but it never came. Instead, Agent Park crumpled to the ground, a bullet wound in his chest. Standing behind him was Dinah's manager from the cafe, holding a smoking gun. "I've been working undercover for years," she said, her voice steady, "waiting for the right moment to take them down. You two just gave me the perfect opportunity." Dinah and Jungkook stared at her in stunned silence. "Who are you?" Dinah finally asked. Her manager smiled. "Let's just say I'm on your side." As the sirens wailed in the distance, Dinah realized that the world was far more complicated and dangerous than she'd ever imagined. But one thing was certain, she was no longer just a server in a quiet cafe. She was a hero, and her story was far from over. When a server served Jungkook at a quiet cafe, she expected nothing more than a routine shift. But what he left behind, a note and a tip, made her cry and sparked a nationwide conversation. The aroma of espresso mingled with the faint scent of fresh pastries, lingering in the air. The afternoon lull had stretched longer than usual, and the hum of conversation in the cafe had dwindled to a murmur. For Dinah, the shift felt like a marathon. Every tick of the clock seemed to slow, every clink of cutlery a reminder that she had been on her feet for hours. She wiped down the last table by the window and checked her phone. Just one more hour. Rent was due in 2 days, and her phone bill sat unpaid. The day had been dismal, most tips just loose change tossed half-heartedly onto tables by busy customers who never looked up from their phones. Dinah sighed, tightened her ponytail, and grabbed her order pad. Her manager, an older woman with tired eyes, glanced at her as if to say, "Hang in there." But Dinah was already on autopilot. Then the bell above the door chimed, its sound startling her back to focus. A young man stepped in, tall, slim, wearing a crisp suit and pants that made him look effortlessly put together. 2 men followed closely behind, almost blending into the background, their sharp eyes scanning every corner of the cafe. This wasn't the kind of place that attracted famous guests. It wasn't where you'd expect celebrities, let alone someone who arrived with what looked like security. For a moment, Dinah froze, her pen hovering over her notepad. But professionalism kicked in, and she walked to the table in the farthest corner where the young man had seated himself. "Good afternoon," Dinah said, mustering her best smile. "Can I get you something to start?" The young man looked up, and for a moment, Dinah almost forgot what she was supposed to say. His face was striking, but there was something familiar about it. His features soft, his expression calm. Then it hit her. Jungkook. Dinah had seen his face in the news and on countless screens over the years. A global superstar, a member of BTS, one of the most famous people on the planet. Her heart raced, but she did what she was trained to do. Stay calm. This was a customer, nothing more, nothing less. "I'll just have a cappuccino," Jungkook said softly, his voice polite but reserved. "And maybe one of those croissants." He shook his head when she asked if he wanted anything else. "That'll be perfect. Thank you." His words were simple, but his tone carried something Dinah couldn't quite place. Kindness, maybe, or sincerity. She scribbled down the order, turned back to the counter, and tried to shake the fluttering in her chest. She wasn't sure if it was nerves or exhaustion, but something about this moment stuck with her. As Dinah prepared the coffee, she couldn't help but glance back at the corner table. Little did she know, this small interaction would change her entire day, and maybe her week. The steam from the cappuccino machine hissed as Dinah frothed the milk. She kept her movements deliberate, steady, anything to distract herself from the strange, nervous energy swirling in her stomach. Why am I acting like this? She thought. It's Jungkook, of all people. Her eyes drifted back to the table. He sat quietly, his posture upright, but not stiff. He wasn't scrolling through his phone or typing on a laptop like most customers. He just gazed out the window at the street outside, lost in thought, occasionally sipping water from the glass she'd brought earlier. When the cappuccino and croissant were ready, Dinah balanced the tray carefully and approached his table. "Here you go," she said, gently setting the cup and pastry in front of him. He looked up and gave a small smile. "Thank you." "You're welcome. Let me know if you need anything else," Dinah replied, her tone neutral but polite. As she turned to walk back to the counter, something stopped her. Maybe it was the feeling that his eyes were still on her, curious, but not intrusive. Or maybe it was just her own exhaustion making her hyper-aware. Her heart fluttered again. Minutes passed, and Dinah busied herself cleaning empty tables and refilling sugar containers. The cafe was quiet again, save for the faint hum of background music playing through the speakers. She felt the weight of the room in a way she hadn't before, as if something invisible was pressing on her, urging her to pay attention. Out of the corner of her eye, Dinah saw Jungkook pull a pen from his pocket and lean over the receipt as he finished his meal. He scribbled something quickly, as if he didn't want anyone to notice, folded the paper neatly, and tucked it under his empty coffee cup. Then he stood, gathered his phone and jacket, and headed for the door. Dinah watched him for a split second before forcing herself to focus. "Thank you for coming," she called softly as he passed. Jungkook turned slightly and smiled. "Have a great day." The words lingered longer than they should have. Dinah stood frozen in the middle of the cafe, her eyes following him as he walked out with his security trailing behind. The bell above the door chimed one last time, and then the room was silent again. She exhaled slowly, picked up her tray, and walked over to clear the table. The cappuccino cup was empty, a faint trace of foam clinging to the rim. Beside it, the croissant plate held nothing but crumbs. And there, under the cup, was the receipt. Dinah picked it up carefully. The folded paper felt heavier than it should have. Her first thought was about the tip. Maybe it would be generous. But it wasn't unusual for wealthy customers to leave large tips, often as a way to compensate for their lack of interaction. Yet when she unfolded the receipt, the air left her chest. At the bottom, below the total, was a number, a tip so large it made her stomach drop. 4 digits, crisp and clear. And above it, a handwritten note. "Your kindness and hard work don't go unnoticed. My family has been where you are. Stay strong. Brighter days are coming." Dinah's hands trembled as she read the words again, this time more slowly, letting each sentence sink in. Her eyes darted to the door where Jungkook had disappeared, and her vision blurred as hot tears welled up. Her knees felt weak. She stumbled back to the empty chair across from where he'd sat and just stared at the note. In the end, it wasn't about the money. It was the words, the weight of empathy written in ink by someone she never imagined would notice her existence. For the first time in weeks, months, even Dinah felt seen. As the tears streamed down her face, she thought about what those words meant. But this moment wasn't over. Not yet. Others would see the note, and Dinah's story would ripple far beyond the walls of the cafe.